up, DFam? Welcome back to the greatest Houston-based podcast in the world. I'm your host, Danny G, and today we got a very special guest. She is a registered nurse. She's founder of Raw Holistics Coaching and Consulting. Please allow me to welcome good friend of mine, friend of the show, Miss Jazmine Reyes.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be
Of
here.
course, it's my pleasure. I'm excited to have you on. Like I said, I've known you for quite a while. We've been friends in and out. I've tried to keep contact with you every now and then, and I vicariously lived through your traveling Instagram for the longest time. But with
Thanks.
that being said, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. Like I said, I'm excited to be here. I have Leo here. He's my dog, Leonidas. He's 8 now, so he's my little partner here. But yeah. Hi.
Like I told you earlier, I've seen him only through your Instagram, and I've never realized how big he is. Like, he is huge, and I've only seen a little bit of him in the camera.
I know he is huge.
But
Like I
that's
always make
amazing.
let's see, Leo, you want to come back here? He weighs more than me. Come on, Papa. Come on. Let's see if we can see. Hey. He's so awkward. He doesn't realize how
Hey.
big he is. And so he's just like very awkward and wonky when he walks around. No, but he's great. Like we have 4 chickens and he like when you see him, you probably would feel like intimidating because he's huge and he's like a German Shepherd, right? And he's far from that. Like he wouldn't hurt a fly. So like when I first introduced them, he didn't want to make eye contact. He's like, I don't know what that is, but I don't want to be near it. Now they're fine. No, but he's so sweet. He's a gentle
He's a
giant.
gentle soul.
Yeah.
That's so cute. See, that's one thing I love about big dogs. They always seem so gentle. They look ferocious, but every big dog I've ever encountered was the most gentle soul in the world. So just to give a little bit of background, Jasmine, you are a registered nurse, correct?
Yeah.
That also practices holistic coaching. Is that correct?
Holistic coaching and consulting, yeah.
Awesome, which I'm very excited to learn about because like I told you before we started, I asked a couple of friends if they knew what holistic healing meant, and all of them were like, oh, it's crystals, right? Like they had no idea what holistic healing means. So I'm really excited to give our listeners the opportunity to learn and, maybe grow from it and possibly contact you for more consulting and more education on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that being said, first question was, what made you pursue a career in medical?
I would say it started with my mom. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. I think I was about around 11. And it was one summer, the kids at school were out like doing summer camps and fun vacations. And I remember that summer I was at home with my mom. She had just finished treatment. She had just gotten, double mastectomy. She had, drains put in, chemotherapy, radiation, all of that. And yeah, so while my dad was working, I was at home with my mom taking care of her. And so yeah, so at like age 11, I was draining her bulbs, like her drains, right? And her suction bulbs, and
Wow.
like legit, like at 11, I'm draining blood into like a measuring cup. And I'm writing down on a sheet, okay, how many cc's were emptied at this time, right? Because the doctor wanted to know, like, okay, how much output. And giving her medications. I mean, my mom is she's the type of person that she like wants all the blinds open, natural lights, fresh air, everything like that. But I remember this was very dark. All the blinds were closed. It was really dark. She was depressed. She was sick. She was, so I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen her like that. And yeah, I had to literally do everything for her. I had to gently like walk her to the bathroom and give her a sponge bath. Literally, like you see in movies, like give her a sponge bath, her whole body. And I mean, she was so weak. She was so weak. And Yeah, I remember like as her daughter, like I had to do that. There was
Mhm.
no one there to do that for her. And I just got so much satisfaction
Yeah.
doing it. It was very natural to me to help her because she's my mom, right?
Mhm.
But also,
Yeah.
you see someone ill and you're like, I want to help you. So that's kind of where it first started. Um, and then yeah, I applied to nursing school and got in. And yeah, my
Wow.
mom is definitely the main reason for that.
Wow, that's amazing. First off, I'm sorry that you guys had to go through that. I never knew that about you, and I'm sure it was a very hard time to live through, especially at such a young age. But I find it amazing that you took that and it came natural to you. I'm sure. Like
Yeah,
I feel like most people that I've yeah, I feel like most people that I've met that become nurses, like it's something like that pushes them because it's a natural feeling for them and they love taking care of people. Is that kind of like
yeah,
how you felt when you were going through it?
yeah. No, it was definitely
That's
natural for me. And especially in the hospital,
yeah,
like
that's
you kind of have to have that in order to like love your job, right?
mhm.
I mean, you're helping patients. Like that is your sole purpose is to, um, you know, be there through their illness and comfort them. And some of these patients don't have families. They're all alone, right? So it's like that's even extra hard because they don't even have like their own family support or whatnot. And so yeah, that's kind of how that all started. And even now, I see like my friends and they're like, oh, I hate my job, or I wish I could have picked a different career. I never once thought that. Even with the pandemic, I've never once regretted my job as a nurse because we need nurses. We need people to take care of us. And yeah, I love it so much.
That's so cool. Now, you being a nurse in the pandemic, was that like a crazy amount of stress or just a crazy moment to live through? Because you were freshly a nurse at that moment, weren't you?
I think that was like 4.5 years in. So I had already been working in the ICU for that amount of time, and I was on my first travel contract when COVID happened, and my first contract was in Colorado, in Denver, Colorado. I remember hearing like rumors of like COVID. I'm like, no, no, it's just it's like the flu or whatever, and then the world shut down
Uh-huh.
and shit got real.
Yeah, that was crazy. The crazy thing is I got COVID before people knew it was COVID.
Really?
And we didn't find out till like months later. Yeah.
Wow. What were your
Yeah.
symptoms? Like, what was like the first thing that you'd be like, this is kind of weird?
It was literally it was the first time I had ever felt flu like symptoms in my entire life. Never
Hmm.
had the flu. And that's what I thought I had. But when they tested me for it, not flu. They didn't know what it was. And I had all the intense symptoms the first go around. Like I had the trouble breathing. Um, which it wasn't necessarily trouble breathing. I was short of breath. Every time I
Yeah.
would move, I'd feel like I was suffocating. I passed out one day just walking from my room to the restroom,
Oh
and
no.
like yeah, I tested. I don't know how many times they couldn't figure it out, and then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks after I started feeling better, they're like, "Oh, there's this new virus going around called COVID," and my doctor, I don't know how they found out, but they ended up calling me and they're like, "Hey, we think you had COVID," and they sent me like a whole CDC packet and whatnot, and yeah, it
Isn't
was
it
so weird.
wild? Did you ever lose your smell or taste
Yeah,
or anything?
no, I didn't lose my smell or taste till probably like the eighth time I got COVID. I've had COVID a lot of times. Like I've tested positive so many times for it. But yeah, I don't think it was till like the eighth or ninth time that I actually lost my sense of smell for a couple of days.
I
But
lost
besides
my
that,
my
I
smell.
never did.
I
Did you?
remember
I was gonna say, how was that? Because I've heard people lose it, but I don't understand how you live with no scent.
so it's actually not completely back, to be honest. And this was like 2021, 2021. And
Whoa.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't have it like 100% back. And I have like some remedies like written down on my phone that some doctors recommended, but I haven't really gotten to it. But um yeah, it's like probably like 75% back. But it's such a weird virus. It's so weird. I mean, working during the pandemic was just like okay, so imagine, the world shutting down and you're driving down the highway and there's nobody, but you're going to work. You're doing, because as a nurse and
Yeah.
doctor and like, first responders, that it was weird. It felt like an apocalypse. And driving down the highway and there's no one there but you, and you're parking at the hospital, and 6 feet away, and it's just so odd. And then now everyone's wearing masks all of a sudden, and it was it was interesting because I remember we would do huddles. So like before your shift starts, everyone
Mhm.
meets in the break room, and you do a huddle and you talk about what the day is going to look like and how the night went, or how the previous shift went. And I remember we would all just look at each other like, what is going on? And no one knew really much, right, at that time. And so we did the best we could, but it got it got intense real quick. Our hospitals flooded with patients, and that first wave was more of the older generation coming in. And at the time there was no visitors allowed, none of that, right? So
Mhm.
it was really sad to see that patients were dying by themselves. We had these iPads that we would set up, and
Mhm.
when if and when the patient was dying, we would set up the iPad and make appointments with their family members, and
Wow.
put it on the stand, and that tore me apart. And I'm like, no one should die alone. And of course I'm in
Yeah.
there, I'm head to toe, I look like a freaking alien. And so I never allowed the patients to die alone. I was always there, but still without their family and friends. I mean, it's
Mhm.
sad, it was scary. And I remember distinctly, I remember one time this was when I worked in Houston at one of the hospitals here. And this was like the peak of COVID. And there was this Hispanic, middle age, he was probably like in his early 60s. And I got there and it was just, the whole patient assignment was a mess. And I'm like, he does not look good. Like as soon as I walked in, I'm like, this situation, no, no, no. So I called the doctor right away. I said, I need you to come here, please. And she's like, yeah, we need to intubate. Like we drew some labs, ABG, that's an arterial blood gas, and that's we're able to see like his oxygenation levels and things like that a little bit more accurately. And his oxygen stats were low. I mean, everything was just on paper, and then physically he looked terrible. And I remember explaining to him, like, we're gonna have to put the tube in you. Like, are you okay with that? And he's just like freaking out. He's scared. And I was like, where's your phone? Where's your phone? Let's call someone. I want you to be able to speak to someone and say, I love you. Like, who knows? We don't know if he'll ever be able to take that tube out and speak, or if he's gonna die that way. Because that was a trend that we were
Yeah.
seeing. And I remember, you know, right before we intubated, put the breathing tube in him, of course we give medications to help the patient relax and feel no pain and anything like that. And he was just praying in Spanish just over and over and over. I was just holding his hand. I was like, aquí estoy. Like I'm with you. I'm here with you. And it was it was crazy, Danny. It was crazy. And yeah, that was like a very weird time for me as a nurse, but again, we did the best
Mhm.
we could with what we knew. And um I'm really glad that's over. I'm really glad that's over. But go
I
ahead,
was gonna
Danny.
say, did you ever feel helpless in a lot of those situations? Because like y'all were doing the best you could with the situation y'all had, but it seemed like, I mean, from the outside in, it seemed like nothing was working for a lot of people.
I think that, yeah, at times I did felt helpless, but I will tell you this, is that the one thing that I just truly love about nursing and working in the hospital is that we are always a team. no matter what, we have each other's backs. And, all of us, we had to like support each other and push each other. We got this. Like, are you good? Do you need to have a bathroom break? Do you need to eat? Do you need to cry? Do you need to vent? Like, we were supporting each other. And so, although it was scary, I never felt alone. Like, I've worked with some incredible, incredible nurses, and we got through it together. And, you know, there was whenever, okay, during the pandemic, when we had our COVID patients, we did something called proning. So when you're supine, you're on your back, laying in bed. When you're prone, you're flipped over to where your stomach, your whole chest is on, laying flat on the bed, and your back is up to the ceiling. And so we would do that every so often to move their body so that the fluid isn't, staying on one side of the body. And so of their lungs, just keeping them moving, right? And so that was the scariest because they were so sick, and it took like, and remember, like they have the tube attached, they have central lines, which is like an IV 2.0, like it's in their vein here in their neck, and it's like if that comes out, like you got a
It's in the neck.
big problem. Oh yeah, it's in your neck. You have a vein in your neck. You have an arterial line, which is kind of like an IV, but in your artery. If that's pulled out, that's very bad. You have a Foley, urinary catheter. I mean, there's so much connected to you. So not only like are we, being careful with the patient, but we have to like maneuver the tubes and lines, make sure the breathing tube doesn't come out, make sure the IV doesn't come out, whatever. So all of that. And it took, like 6 to 8 people to turn depending on the weight of the patient. And that was always like, we always dreaded that because that was a time where patients coded because they were just so sick, like even
Really?
like doing that full turn. Oh my gosh. Remember, we would all look at each other and like make eye contact. Is everyone ready? And we would just have to take some deep breaths and like, okay, respiratory, it's on your count. At 1, we all do a half turn. And then we do that count again. At 1, we do a full turn. It was very much like, hey, everyone is on the same page. We have to be meticulous about it. We have to be careful. And yeah, man, that was crazy. It was a crazy time. But I will say I've worked with the
Wow.
greatest healthcare members, and I'm just so grateful for them. I mean, I couldn't have done it without like their encouragement and support.
Wow, that is crazy, and I'm sure so many people are grateful for all the nurses and everyone that did everything they could, to help them get better and survive such a crazy and scary illness. I mean, like I said, I was scared of it because of my parents. I have older parents, and my fear was always that I was gonna get something and then they get sick. But my parents were very proactive about getting their shots. They're like any COVID shot, any booster, they got it. Which I
Mm-hmm.
mean, in a way, is like awesome. You guys are old. You guys are doing what you need to do. But then you find out all these crazy things and theories and conspiracies about the shots, and you're just like, "Oof, was that the right call?"
Again, like
But
we're all just doing the best that we can, and
mhm,
and really like with holistic, it's holistic to me means not just the physical, not just like your vitals or your blood pressure or anything like that, but it's you know your mind, body, and spirit. It's all of that. And so with
mhm,
COVID, I was like, oh my goodness, not even just with COVID, but in the ICU, I would see my patients, and sometimes we would call them frequent flyers when they would get discharged and then get readmitted 2 weeks later, and it's a whole cycle. And it's like, what are we
mhm,
doing wrong? Like, we're not doing something right.
mhm,
I mean, we're educating as they discharge, but they're coming back. And so, I realized that a lot of the comorbidities that they have, whether it's high blood pressure, high cholesterol, whatever it is, it's preventable. And
mhm.
in conventional medicine, all we're doing is putting a band-aid on it. Here's a medication, by good luck. Here's a medication for the side effect of the first one, and it's an ongoing cycle. And so I was like, okay, working in the ICU has been very rewarding of, helping patients get out of the ICU, and or if they do pass, like I do my best to make sure that they're not alone, they're comfortable, they're clean, I always ask like, "What's your favorite music?" And I'm playing jams in the background, or if they can't talk, I ask their family. I'm like, "What does he listen to?" And they'll be like, "I don't know.
Hmm.
Shoot, let's say Jose Alfredo. I'll play him. Like I'll play some jams during bath time because bath time takes an hour." And I'm like, you know, I just do my best, right? But how can we prevent them from being admitted in the ICU in the first place? Well, it's preventing that, those comorbidities, and it's
Hmm.
educating them. So that's kind of where I switched my career from bedside nursing to nurse coaching, which is essentially the same as a health coach, but we just have extra, we're practicing as registered nurses, and we have that education, that hospital education. And yeah, it's more rewarding to keep them out of the ICU, keep them out of the hospital, and improve their quality of life.
Is that where your interest sparked into holistic? Was post COVID, um, or like what sparked that aspect in you? Because I mean, I followed you on Instagram, right? And I did see when you started getting into hunting and fishing, and
Hmm.
I found that so interesting. And then later down the line, you started learning more about like the food you're eating and stuff. So like my I guess my question is, when did it really start sparking that interest in you, where you took that switch?
Yeah, I think I was burnt out. Um, I was really tired, and just the hospital system, even like for nurses, we're short staffed. I mean, we have 30-minute lunch breaks, working 12 and a half hours. 30 minutes. It's crazy.
Wow.
And you barely get breaks. Like, I mean, it's hard. It's really hard. And so, I got burnt out, but I was just
Hmm.
like, I love being a nurse, so what can I do? And it's just, like I mentioned, I wanted to help people, um, just improve their quality of life, and not, their life doesn't have to be in the hospital. And that's what I was seeing. And
Hmm.
I was introduced to herbal like remedies. I remember having like my whole life, I had painful, heavy periods, and I was introduced to herbal remedies, such as like burdock root, milk thistle, things like that. And they're like little tinctures, and it's just herbs. That's all it is, herbs.
Hmm.
And I remember I'm like, okay, let me try it. And I started taking it, and my periods like balanced out. And they weren't, I was on the heating pad, ibuprofen, just like fetal position in bed. I'm like, oh my
Hmm.
God. And then I realized like I was listening to my body, and I was feeling so much better, less hormonal acne. My period would come around, and it wasn't like debilitating. It was like a period should be. Painful, heavy periods are common, but they're not normal. That means your body is trying to tell you something like, hey, I'm screaming for help. Something's not right, whether it's, hormonal
Hmm.
imbalance or whatever it is. So that's kind of what got me into that, because I'm like, oh, okay. So I dig this. I'm going to keep learning. And so, yeah, I just haven't
Hmm.
stopped since then. It was finding herbal remedies, and also wanting to practice nursing differently, and that's helping helping people just live better lives, like good lives, and
Hmm.
um not feel like they have to be on like 10 medications, or you know what I mean? It's just,
Hmm.
I can go on and on, but
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
little.
No, that's so interesting, and it's interesting that you talked about like heavy periods and stuff because I have a few family members that have suffered with PCOS, and they've struggled with it, and like I've tried to learn as much as I can about it just to be able to help, because it is a very common thing apparently in women, especially nowadays.
Mhm.
um and it's so crazy that you found that milk thistle and things like that worked, because I've tried that with my family members, with my wife included. She suffers from PCOS, and we've been constantly trying to figure out like what it takes to get the hormonal balance. And that's where my interest in holistic healing started as well, was because I started learning so much about how bad our food is here in the US,
Mhm.
and how processed it is, and how like literally every disease we have can be traced down to processed food and
Yeah.
GMOs and all these other things. And you said something earlier that really interested me, that you said a lot of these things can be reversed. But what about like people that have these issues genetically? Is that a real thing where things can get passed down genetically, like blood pressure, diabetes,
It's
and so
funny, I
on and
was
so on?
just watching a documentary last night. But I have my book somewhere. I think it's in the living room. But what I'm learning right now is that some of it can be genetic, such as cancer, right? Don't quote me on this, but I want to say it's 5 to 15%. Not completely sure, but I think that's the range. But a lot of people think, okay, my mom had high blood pressure, so that means I'm gonna have high blood pressure. That's not necessarily true. Those like genes get activated depending on like environmental factors, lifestyle, and things like that. So just because like you have a family history of it does not mean that that's gonna be your life. What you can do is, eat real organic local foods. It's moving your body. And that doesn't mean hitting the gym like 6 days a week. And no, it could be yoga, it could be walking, it could be dancing, skating, riding a bike. Just move your body, right?
Mhm.
With my business, Raw, Remembering Ancestral Wisdom, I created that name because I think about my grandma. So my grandma, Maluz, she passed when she was 105, like a month away from turning 106. And born and raised in Mexico.
Wow.
And I remember going every year and just watching her and just very quiet, like the typical Mexican grandma, quiet and just like thinking and, enjoying her little tequila or cerveza. And she's like in her garden and, just very mindful. And I remember complaining to my mom, like, oh my God, these days are so long. And now I'm like, oh, I get it. I get it now, right? But I think about her and I think about, okay, there's no processed foods, no canned foods. They walk a lot. They have to take a bus to go into the market, el mercado, and buy like fresh dairy, fresh meat, fresh veggies. Everything's fresh and sourced and sold by the people around them. And, no microwaves, no stress. They're not rushing to get to work to a job that they hate or rush hour. No, no, no. It's simple. And so that's why I created that meme and that's my approach is to remember ancestral wisdom because we're we're overcomplicating our lives here in America. I don't understand, the rise and grind, the American rat race. What is it all for? Really? I mean, if you're constantly stressed, what's it all for? So yeah, I
Yeah.
don't even know what the question was now, but I feel like I just went on a tangent, but
No, but what you said is so true, right? Like that is one of the biggest flaws here in America is we're all stressed out, we're all overworked. It's the rise and grind. I mean, that's why so many people fall into addiction, into depression, and into all these like terrible things. I mean, I became an addict, and I have a very addictive personality. I struggled with alcohol at a young age, and then as a young adult, I got hooked to cocaine because I was working so much and I was trying to figure out how I can keep going. I was rise and grind, rise and grind. Sleep 4 hours a day, work 2, 3 jobs a day.
hmm
Make it, and it pushed me into doing things that I wish I would have never done. Right, because it obviously affected my body and like really not only affected me physically but mentally because I was
yeah.
severely depressed. I was literally numb to everything. I was just going through the
hmm
motions, wake up every day, go to sleep, but I would sleep 4 hours. I would drink 24 pack of beer a day. I would consume drugs and it was so bad. And as I've gotten older, I mean, luckily I've been able to be sober. I've been able to practice sobriety, have a healthy relationship with alcohol again. Um, and just like growing up and realizing how the rise and grind ideology is really so stupid. There's no real satisfaction in it because you rise and grind and get to a point and then you just want more.
Yeah.
So I love that you're very much to like simplifying things. I see you're in a log cabin, which is freaking awesome. You're really going down like to the roots, just really, and you seem so happy. Like like I said, I've known you for a while. I followed your Instagram for a while, and you seem like you're glowing, you're happy, you're enjoying life. And I love that you're really taking this approach. I
You know
also
why,
forgot the
Danny?
question. You started talking about
You know why
like
though?
why? Go
Why
ahead.
I'm happy is because I'm, for the first time in my life, like I'm finally living for myself. Like
Yeah.
I see life in color now. Whereas like you mentioned, I mean, you wake up, rise and grind, do the work, da, 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 you come home, you do it all over again. It's a routine. It's a routine. And it's like, well, all it is we're feeding the system. We're just a hamster in the wheel. Again, what is this for?
Hmm.
Right? And it's like, I think about my grandma and I'm like, wow, they lived so long because they weren't stressed. Stress is like stress is the reason for most of our, you know, of our health issues. Um, but
Hmm.
um, yeah, I live life with intention now. I'm not
Okay.
I can't go to a job that I hate. I can't be friends with someone that is a low-key hater or like doesn't have her best interest in me or whatever. I can't do it anymore. I'm living for myself and authentically me. But I do have a question for you. So you said
Okay.
alcoholism was a problem for you. And I've been reflecting on this too because it was for me. I wouldn't consider that I was an alcoholic, but I definitely abused alcohol. Like on the weekends, out of habit, or if I had a bad day, or, you know,
Hmm.
I don't think people realize that that's alcohol abuse, but it is. Um, in our
Hmm.
culture, do you feel like it's normalized to drink heavily? And
So
especially with the men,
in
like,
our culture, it's normalized, right? And it's funny because I have these conversations a lot with my dad because my dad used to never drink. When I was a kid, I didn't see him drink till we moved to Texas when I was probably like 15. Um, until then, he used to never drink. He used to have a beer or two here and there. Now the dude drinks like 3, 4 beers every day. I'm like, whoa, dude, you gotta slow it down. You're getting older. You can't be drinking like that. But that being said, my grandpa on my mom's side lived to be 99 years old, had 2 shots of tequila every day.
mm,
But he had, control of it. Now, the younger generations under my grandpa, everyone drinks so heavily. I've had 3 cousins that we've lost to, what is it called? Cirrhosis? Is
yeah,
that the right word?
cirrhosis.
Yeah, cirrhosis. Yeah. Yeah, I've lost 3 cousins to it because they drink so heavily, and like when I lost one of my cousins that I was really close with to cirrhosis, that was kind of like my wake up call as to why I sort of tried to stop drinking. I went cold turkey and then relapsed like really bad, um, and I struggled with it for a little while. But seeing, the loss of my cousin, he was 32 years old, died of cirrhosis. Dude
Mm,
was drinking like
sorry.
crazy, and it was just normalized with him. Like all my cousins, all my uncles, they would all get together every weekend and just pound bottles and bottles of liquor, pound beers like crazy. I mean, my issue was I would get home, buy a 24 pack and drink the whole 24 pack every day. Like
Hmm.
that's how much I was drinking. And when we lost my cousin, it just really made me realize like that's the only end point when you drink that heavily. There's no winning. It's terrible that we've normalized it, especially in Mexican culture. Because I
Yeah.
mean, every time you see, especially an older Mexican man, he's got a bottle of tequila at a function, or he's drinking beers, and you always got that one uncle that always gets too drunk, and acts a fool at every family function.
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
you got at least 2 or 3 cousins that have a
Yeah.
DUI. It's too much of a regular thing in Hispanic culture. Unfortunately, it's too normalized, and I feel like that's one of the things that really fucks us up. Like
Yeah.
it fucks us up not just health wise, but it ruins families. It
It
causes a
does. It
lot of
ruins families.
destruction.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
like the 2 points, like, because I've been reflecting on this, I'm like, okay, I think one is, Mexican men tend to be like more like this macho man, like man of the house, like very, strong, whatever. And so I think that, you know, when you go to parties and let's say like they're not really drinking or maybe they're babysitting, right? Like if you observe, you see like
Mhm.
the other male cousins like making fun of them. Like, you're gonna babysit that all night, or
Mhm.
you're gonna drink like a man kind of thing. And I think it's peer pressure. But also I
Mhm.
think that like in our culture, we don't talk about our emotions. Like I remember
Yeah.
my mom, she's like, I told her I was like, I'm depressed. And she's like, it's all in your head. I'm sure you've heard that. Like, oh, it's all in your head.
Oh my
Échale
god.
ganas. Why are you depressed? You have everything. We're in America. And I'm
Yeah.
like, Mom, she know she's
Yeah,
thinks
that's my
differently of
dad.
that now. Yeah. I
My
think it's
dad
just a way to,
definitely till this day, he's barely yeah, like, my dad's barely coming around to mental health being a real thing. For the longest
yeah.
time, he'd be like, "Son puras pendejadas, like, get to work, shut
Mhm.
up, go do what you gotta do, handle business." And no, I have the same bringing up with my dad because he just for everything he's like, "¿Con cuál depresión? Si estás aquí en Estados Unidos, just go to work, you'll be fine." You know,
You know that meme
he
of
really taught me,
the
just
sorry, I
okay,
know
go
there's
ahead.
like a lag. You know that meme of that, I don't know if it's like a squirrel, but it's a meme where it's like, this is fine, and they're holding a coffee cup, and there's like fire, like flames in the back. He's like sitting at the table with his coffee cup. I'm like, that's how it feels. Like, this is
Yep.
fine. Like, no big deal. No, but I think that like, yeah, our culture, like we just they don't understand, our older generation, our parents, our grandparents, they were not encouraged to express themselves, or so though that
Mhm.
trauma, that pain that they have, they numb it with alcohol. It's easy to forget about that and escape
Yeah.
reality that way. So I don't know, that's my theory, but yeah, very
Well,
interesting.
I feel like you're onto something there because it's definitely true. Like, one of the issues I've had since I've been married is that because I was raised to just be strong, tough, not talk about emotions. I struggle so much to talk to my wife about emotions. Like, I don't know how to do it, and we always get in arguments about it because she's like, "Oh, talk to me," I'm your partner and this and that. I'm like, yeah, I understand that, but in my brain, like emotions don't just turn on where I can talk about them. Like it doesn't connect there.
Yeah,
And it's definitely like a very Mexican thing, right? We're taught to be tough, we're taught to be proud, and we can do it all, as long as we work at it. And yeah, it's just crazy because I struggle with
right.
it all the time. I do not talk about emotions at all.
Well, Danny, I'm gonna tell you two things. But the first is like, I celebrate you for acknowledging that. Like, that's like the first step, is actually acknowledging that, because not many men will ever accept that. So that's like a huge step, and I want to congratulate you for that. And the second is, I'm gonna offer a suggestion. Let's say your wife is having like a bad day, and she's, maybe crying or stressed out or whatever, and you're like, what do I do? Okay, so ask her, because men are more logical. They're more of like doers, like fixing. Like, I just know how to fix, right? But try
Mhm.
this. So she's having a bad day, and you are like, okay, do you want comfort or solution? Or maybe it's both. But ask her, because sometimes, I mean, you can't read our minds, even though we would love for that to happen. But sometimes we just want to vent and cry it out and be like, whatever it is that's going on.
Mhm.
Or sometimes we want solution. We want you guys to like help us, guide us, support us. Sometimes we want both. So if you're just kind of lost and you're like, I don't know what to do, just ask, like, do you want comfort or solution or both? That way, okay, she wants comfort, so I'm just gonna sit here with her and just, hold her hand and just hold space.
Mhm.
Just be there. Just listen. If you want solution, then okay, that's your role to like, okay, well, let's listen to whatever issue she's having, and let's see if I can help her. And if it's something that you're like, okay, I have no idea what to do, then just say, I'm not really sure what to do right now, but let's find out together, and let's help you with this.
Mhm.
So, yeah, just like a little suggestion there.
I'm definitely gonna try that. I feel like I've gotten better at it with time, right? Because I'm seeing it and I'm trying to be open minded about it. What kills me is like when she asks me how I'm feeling, and I'm just like, I don't know, because I'm so used to grabbing these emotions and just like as we actually talked about this today because I got in trouble at work. I made a big mistake and I was all stressed out, and she was trying to get me to talk about it, and I was like, I don't know. I'm just like trying to think of a game plan of how I'm gonna correct this and overcome it. Because again, my upbringing was shut up and work. Shut up
Mm-hmm.
and just get through it, push through it, work through it. You're gonna be fine. And like I think it's harder for me to open up to her and talk about my emotions than for me to like be there and be like, all right, let's I'm pretty good at I've learned to be pretty good at being there for her, but I don't know how to open up. And I've gone to therapy and I've sat there and paid a therapist for hours and hours, and I don't know how to speak about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Or I
it's
have her do
difficult.
the same with you. Like, teach her this, and say, hey, like just, because you never know. Like sometimes, again, sometimes you need a vent or sometimes you need guidance or whatever. But just like practicing, like just, you
Mhm.
don't have to like spill all the beans like right away. Just a little something each time, and more you'll feel more comfortable. Um, and it's tough. Yeah, I feel you because it's tough, especially being a man, it's like we're taught to like just suppress everything. But again, like the fact that you acknowledge that is already a win. And I'm sure, hey, I'm here to help if you ever need help, but I'm sure it's all gonna work out in your favor of learning and growth.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the most important thing, right? Is to grow and learn and grow and become a better person every day. Um, but let's get back on topic because I feel like
Yeah.
I threw us on a tangent there. Um, so can you explain what holistic healing actually means, like for the people that don't know? Because I I've heard it's mind, body, and spirit. Is that correct, or am I off there?
No, no, you're good. The holistic health really is, it's mind, body, and spirit. It's not just, looking at your physical state or your vitals, your blood pressure, whatever like that. It's brain health, it's your spirit, it's emotional, it's all of that. And so when you dig a little bit deeper, it's, herbal remedies, acupuncture, chiropractic, all of these just amazing things that have been here for hundreds of years actually. And so it's funny, you mentioned earlier about crystals, and people when they hear holistic health, they think about like essential oils and like crystals, and it's for me it's not
Mhm.
it's not that. Like I mean, I have essential oils, I like to have a diffuser, but I'm not like out here like selling it like that. But I will say,
Yeah.
when people kind of mock holistic health, I realize that it's not their fault. And let me tell you this, you know, especially nurses and doctors now, all we know is what they've taught us in school, in nursing school or medical school.
Hmm.
That's all we know. So, all right, you ready for this? This is a good one. Okay. John D. Rockefeller. Are you familiar with him? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Super familiar with.
He Yeah, okay. Super rich dude, okay? He owned like over like 90% of the oil refineries, okay? I believe this was in the 50s. And
Mhm.
so, again, he was like the wealthiest man in America at the time. And that was during a time where like sailors were going across the sea and they were dying, like in numbers, because they were dying from lack of vitamin C, which caused scurvy. And so
Scurvy.
yeah,
Sorry.
scurvy. And so that happened because, you get vitamin C from food, you get it from like citrus, fruits, vegetables, things like that. But they would spoil within probably like, 2, 3 days.
Mhm.
And they were going on long journeys across the sea. And so they kind of depended on, stuff that didn't spoil, non-perishable items. And so yeah, they were dying left and right. And then I believe the scientists from Switzerland created the first synthetic vitamin C. Okay. So that was cool because then the sailors were able to take like this little vitamin C supplement on their journey, and they weren't dying anymore because they had their vitamin C. Okay, so
Mhm.
Rockefeller thought he needed more money for something, but he was like, I'm onto something. And so essentially what
Mhm.
he did is he saw like the opportunity to make more money. Okay. So the problem was the medical schools at the time, they were practicing holistic health. Everything that I talk about now, herbal remedies, like morphine, opioids, they come from, the I believe the poppy, right? And so a lot of our
Yeah.
medication actually comes from plants. Okay. So the medical schools at the time were doing everything that we're talking about, chiropractic, holistic remedies, and things like that. And so he bought a German pharmaceutical company and he hired this guy to write a report on America's medical schools, basically saying it was like unscientific quackery. He was like, hired him, write this about the medical schools, right? Let's, you know, and then so then Congress had accepted the report, and the medical schools closed down. Okay, this is all part of his plan.
Mhm.
So then he ended up funding the medical schools that had closed down and said, okay, I'm going to give you the money to open back up under one condition. You teach the doctors a different way of medicine. And that's what it is now. It's pharmaceutical driven. You teach them
Mhm.
the pharmaceutical model, right? And I'll fund you. No big deal,
Mhm.
right? And so that's kind of where that holistic Quakery started, right? And pushed that out, and in came in like the pharmaceuticals. And so
Mhm.
even like the doctors that were still practicing it, because there was nothing wrong with it. Nature is healing, and
Yeah.
they went to jail for it. Like
Mhm.
they would go to jail. So they were like on it, right? And
Oh.
so when you look at it now, pharmaceutical companies donate to the medical schools and they fund like research, textbooks, media, all of that.
Mhm.
So yeah, they're in bed with like the politicians who make our laws, big pharma, all of that. And that's that's kind of like it's wild because it's always been here. We've always used them. Native
Yeah.
Americans from Europe. It's not anything new. It's not. And so
Mhm.
yeah, to put that in perspective, like it's very interesting. So holistic healthcare has been here way before Western medicine, to say the least. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure, and that's interesting. You mentioned J.D. Rockefeller because I don't know if you know this, but he's also who influenced the way public schools are ran today. And there's a very famous quote of his where he said, "School's not meant to teach open minds; it's meant to teach workers."
I've heard that quote.
So
I didn't know it
it's
was
pretty
him.
interesting that you mentioned. Yep,
Okay.
yep,
Yeah, I believe it.
and
I
it's
believe it.
it's crazy because yeah, it's also crazy because at the time that they were doing all those studies and shutting down schools, Kellogg was also pushing for their cereal, and that's when they changed the whole food pyramid and all that around that time as well, because
Yeah.
they convinced people that you needed cereal and like wheat and sugar wasn't bad. That's when all that started, and then come to find out later down the line. Sugar's terrible for you. It's probably one of the worst things you can have, especially if it's processed sugar. But
Mhm.
yeah, that was around that time where all those changes happened, and it's crazy because, like you said, it's been around forever. Our ancestors have practiced it. I'm sure your grandma, Ma Luz, did a lot of different things with you know just natural remedies. I mean, in Mexico, that's the thing, right? You get a mosquito
Yeah.
bite, you grab a lemon, put it on the stove, and then put it on your mosquito bite. Problem solved. You're not itchy anymore. And no, that's so impressive, and I love holistic healing. I love what it stands for and what it's becoming. I love that you're practicing it, and you're seeing more people practice holistic healing. When you're seeing more people, turn to what you're doing, where you're not just practicing it, but you're teaching other people, because it probably is the best way to heal the body, using nature rather than using chemicals and super addictive opioids.
Right. Yeah, like our body is actually really smart. Like our body has the ability to heal itself, but we just have to give it the right environment. And so nowadays it's always like trust the experts, trust the doctors, and in no way am I talking down on them because I know some very intelligent, amazing doctors and nurses, but we're so disconnected with our body. We're not taught to listen to our body and realize that our body has the ability to heal because they want us to depend on the system. feed big pharma, feed,
Hmm.
so yeah, I'm really excited to just to go on this new journey in my career. I'm still practicing nursing, but
Hmm.
differently. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. And I mean, you said the body can heal itself, which is really interesting because I was reading a book about what is it, monks? I forgot where they're from, but they claim, with through meditation you can heal your body, and and like you said, in the right conditions, your body will heal itself. Um, do you believe, or have you learned any more about how meditation can heal the body?
So meditation actually, it decreases your stress hormones and it increases your happy hormones. Um, and what was I gonna say? Oh, this is what I would say. Meditation has helped me tremendously, but also like your mindset, your thoughts are so important. I don't think people realize that. Um, Negative mindset, talking bad about yourself, judging other people, or even emotions like anger, judgment, jealousy, things like that, that all causes illness in your body. It all causes diseases. And so, our brain and our gut are connected. So, for example, this is my favorite example because it's so simple and it's just relatable. If I told you, Danny, that you had to talk in front of a group of 100 CEOs and you had to talk for 30 minutes and I didn't give you script, nothing, you're like, good luck. How would you feel, like emotionally? How would you feel?
I think because I'm a very talkative person, I'd be nervous
Hmm.
for probably the first 2 minutes. And then once I start talking, I'll figure out. I'll probably crack a joke or something, try to break the ice. But definitely, I would feel nervous at first, but I'd keep telling myself in my head, "You can do this. You can do this. You can do this," and overcome it.
That's good. That's better than me.
Um,
I'd be
but
freaking
yeah,
out. Okay, so you're nervous, right? What happens? Like what symptoms like physically are you gonna feel if you're nervous? You're gonna feel in your stomach, in your
oh,
armpits,
when
like
I'm nervous,
what do you think? Yeah.
uh, I get hot. I start feeling like I'm
Hmm.
a sweat, and for sure, my stomach starts to turn a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but like I said, in those situations, because I've practiced stand up for a little bit now, I've learned to overcome that stage fright. But yeah, no, for sure. Like as soon as I step on, I'm nervous for at least the first minute, and I'm
Yeah.
feeling hot. I'm feeling my stomach turning a little bit. I feel my brain rushing but going nowhere at the same time. I don't know if you've ever had that, or it feels like
Hmm.
your brain's just going but no thoughts are coming through.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So
then
like
I'm able to bring it down.
when you first started, doing stand up and you mentioned something like your stomach starts churning and okay. So you're nervous, right? You're freaking out. You're like, okay. So your brain is connected to your gut by the vagus nerve, okay? And they communicate. Like the gut is a second brain, okay? So you're nervous. And that message transfers down to your gut. And that's why you feel the butterflies, nausea, maybe cramping, things like that. And so when you think about day to day life, let's say you're always anxious or always, talking bad about yourself or others or whatever it is, that's directly going to your gut and that can cause those symptoms, right? And so, I don't think people realize like how important it is to take care of your mental health and your gut health because what affects one is going to affect the other. When my mom, and she's okay with me talking about this, but she's had some GI issues for 10 years. And so I hooked her up with a functional medicine GI doctor. And one of the things that the doctor said was, all right, we're going to work together 6 months. We're going to get to the bottom of your issues under one condition. You have to seek therapy because my mom had been depressed for so long since my dad passed. And so she's like, you have to seek therapy. You
Mhm.
have to talk to someone and your mindset is so important. And sure, your gut issues could be what you're eating. It could be maybe toxins around you or what you're putting on your body or whatever it is. But it could also be what you're thinking, you know? And so
Mhm.
since then, I'm just like, whoa. And I've just been learning about it nonstop. And so, um, yeah, it's just very interesting. Our body is so freaking cool. And so, like, one of my biggest passions is educating. I want to educate people, and not just, with my clients, I don't just tell them what to do, or no, we're partners. We work together. This is what I suggest and recommend, but before any of that, let's educate each other, right? So I'm a very visual learner, so I like to show, like, you know, photos of the anatomy of our GI gut, or whatever it is, and I want them to actually be active in their health and actually know what they're talking about and connect the two. Because it's one thing to say, you know, okay, you should do this, but it's another thing to actually show them why. Like, why are we doing this? And how does
Yeah.
this work? You know? So,
hmm
so yeah.
So that's interesting. Because I have heard that, and I've learned a little bit about the vagus nerve. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I have heard a lot of times that your gut is your second brain, and
hmm
I've also heard that that's why a lot of kids have ADHD nowadays, is because something in their gut's not doing its job, or they're consuming too many processed foods, and it causes sugar in the brain, which leads to ADHD. I may have said
ADHD.
that wrong, but
No, you said that right.
yeah. But okay. But with that being said, there's obviously a lot of supplements and things like that that people sell for your gut health. And I actually wanted to ask you about this because you're like, that's your main focus, is gut health. How do you feel about like mushrooms and mushroom supplements that are supposed to be like cleansing for your health, like lion's mane and hold on, let me see. I have a supplement here that I take every day. It
Ashwagandha,
has,
some
let's see,
lion's mane. What else you got?
cordyceps, chaga, reishi,
Shaga, reishi,
king
yeah.
trumpet, shiitake. Let's see, turkey tail,
Tell, yeah.
and maitake. Yeah.
I think that they're great. Like, they really are great. Mushrooms are amazing. They're adaptogenic mushrooms. But I would say, with supplements, um, sometimes, like, when you get into the holistic world, you'll meet people that just want to,
hmm
like, here, buy this huge package of expensive supplements. Like, this is going to heal yourself. And
hmm
I don't believe in that. Yes, sometimes we do need supplements temporarily, or sometimes even, lifelong. But I believe in a food first approach. And so that's like the number one I focus
Okay.
on, because a lot of the foods that we're eating right now are processed, or they don't have nutrients, because our soil is not good quality soil anymore. It's being sprayed with pesticides.
hmm
We're eating foods that are not even in season. Like, it doesn't make sense, right? And
hmm
so I always start with food, and really just simplifying it. Like, I also don't
hmm
necessarily believe, like, oh, okay, we have to eat salads every day, and it's like, no, we're human beings. We should be eating real food, meat, good quality organic local steak, egg, dairy, like the best quality that you can get, because you don't want to eat fake food. You don't want to eat food that's filled with, like you said, GMOs and fillers and antibiotics and all of that. And so a part of that is food first approach. Let's work on that. Like, that's the number one thing. Let's get that right first. Let's look at your labs. Let's see what you're deficient in: vitamin D, vitamin B12, iron, whatever it is. Let's supplement that in the meantime, and then let's do follow-up labs, because the whole point is not to exchange prescription medications for supplements. That's not the point. That's, I again, remembering ancestral wisdom. Let's just take it back. Let's, eat real food. Let's get outside. Let's get real sun. Genuine relationships and things like that. And yeah, that's my approach. Again, like, I do, suggest some supplements. Like, right now I'm taking vitamin D. Actually, I just took my labs recently, and I'm always outside. Okay, I'm always outside playing with the chickens, my dog, the cows. And I was shocked. I was like, oh, my vitamin D is lower than I thought it was gonna be. So I'm supplementing a little bit here. And
hmm
it's just it's kind of wild to see. Um, it's it's kind of like there's a saying where it's like a dirty fishbowl, and
Hmm.
like, okay, what would you do first? You would clean the water. You would take the fish out. You wouldn't give a fish antibiotic in a fishbowl full of dirty
Yeah,
water,
no.
right? Which
Yeah.
is supplement or prescription meds. No, that doesn't make sense. You would clean the water, clean the environment they're in, the food they're eating. Maybe stop using, maybe candles or anything that has like a lot of fragrance or toxic chemicals. Environment for me, that's relationships. Get rid of those toxic friends. Get rid of if you're working in a toxic work environment, maybe this is the time to make the switch and take that next step in finding a job that actually brings you happiness and peace, so you're not coming home stressed and things like that. So you clean the water first, you clean your environment. And so yeah, that's my approach for sure.
I love that. I love that analogy you made too with the dirty fishbowl. That's
Hmm.
such a good analogy and such a good way to put it. Um, no, because it's so true. And like I said, I've been supplementing different things here because I switched from a toxic work environment to a new job where I work indoors. So I'm kind of more mindful that hey, I'm not outside all day like I used to be.
Hmm.
Um, luckily, I haven't. Last time I did labs, I didn't have an issue with any vitamin deficiencies, but I do worry about that because like my wife's outside all the time. We go to the beach very often. Like
Hmm.
as soon as the sun's out on Saturday, we're there. Um, but she was vitamin deficient in vitamin D, and it is vitamin D one of those things where your body just doesn't absorb it through the sun sometimes, or
No,
why is it
it
that people have
does.
that deficiency?
It does, but I think we just don't really get it in food as much just because our food sucks now. Um, and I mean, I'm not sure where she works, but like we're like confined like 9 to 5 indoors under fluorescent lighting, whereas back then you were kind of always outside, you were getting more sunlight. Um, and so yeah, vitamin D is so important. It's important for our immune health, our cardiovascular health, our mood. I mean, it's so important. And so yeah, I'm actually making a post about it that I'll release probably this week or next week. So definitely send that to her. And um, if she needs
Oh,
any
for
help with,
sure.
supplementing for sure. But yeah, no, with the adaptogen and like mushrooms like that, it's really good for brain health, especially when you take it consistently. Like I have this coffee, not coffee, but it's mushrooms. It's adaptogenic mushrooms. And
Uh-huh.
um it's nice to like put in a little maple syrup or honey and some raw milk. It's really good for you. So it's definitely great.
Okay, you said something interesting. You said raw milk. And I know a lot of people are scared to consume raw milk, but I myself, I have this discussion with my wife all the time because I grew up drinking goat's milk, but like
Mm.
raw goat's milk. You know, we used to literally milk the goat, put some chocomil in it, and a splash of tequila
Whoa.
to kill the bacteria. And that's what I grew up on. And it's so funny because I'm lactose intolerant. I cannot drink milk anymore. But if I drink goat's milk, I'm fine. And me and my wife were talking about it because she loves milk, but she's also lactose intolerant. But I was telling her that, raw milk is a lot healthier than drinking this pasteurized stuff that's, been watered down and who knows what else they add to it. So how do you feel about raw milk? Because I mean you just mentioned you drink it with your coffee.
I haven't done as much research as I wanted to, but ever since I moved to the country, I've been dabbling into it. I don't drink raw milk like 100%, but I'm like slowly like bringing it into my diet because it is a shock to your body like when you're not used to that. So it's important not to like cut cold turkey, but like slowly like implement it. But I just again like our ancestors drank milk straight from the cow. Like, they drink milk, they hunted, they just so I feel like a lot of the time, being in the store and you see everything, whether it's milk, eggs, meat or whatnot, if you can get that from a source close to you, whether it's in the country here, or I know there's for example, there's 1915, which is a local farm. I want to say it's about like an hour away, but they send you meat and it's all organic, pasture raised. I mean, I don't know if they ship raw milk or anything like that, but you can get it around here. Major's Farms, they're in this area, and they're every Friday they come to Meadville, and it's crazy. They're just out here in front of the feed store, and it's like a big like white van, and there's a guy there just
Really?
selling raw milk. Yeah, it's so cool, and I'm like,
Wait.
oh
The
my gosh.
feed store right there off of 36?
Yes, yeah, he's
Is
in the parking lot
really? My
on
parents live
Friday.
down the street from me.
Oh, really? You gotta place the order by a certain time. I want to say by like Thursday afternoon or
Huh?
something. You gotta place your order, but he's there every Friday evening at 6 p.m. and you pick up your raw milk. Yeah. So there are ways to
Really?
get, yes, there are ways to get local organic stuff. You gotta do a little research, but I'm happy to send that over. Yeah.
Oh, please do. Please send me that, because
Yeah.
I definitely have been trying to find better quality food. Um, Specifically again because my wife has PCOS and we're trying to figure
Hmm.
out, how we can heal this because it is a hormonal imbalance, and we want to be able to not just put a band-aid over it, but really heal her body and get her hormones back in the right spot, and really, live life a much healthier way. I
Yeah.
guess is what I'm trying to say. So I would definitely appreciate it if you can send me some of those people's numbers or contacts. I would love to get a hold of them,
Yeah, for sure.
because that's just very important to me. um, I really want to help her heal, and likewise, I want to heal my body and get as healthy as I possibly can. Um, I used to work as a mechanic for very long hours, super stressful job, and you know, these past 2 years I've been really focusing on kind of trying to live better in the
Hmm.
aspect of being happier. Checking my mental health. Like I said, I started going to therapy. Um, Still struggle there a little bit. Been going for about a year, and it still feels like sometimes I'm just throwing money away, but I'm working on it. But no, that's oh, I lost my train of thought there. I was gonna say something, but I completely lost my train of thought. It was going into why holistic healing means so much to me, and why I appreciate you like really coming on the show and talking to us about it. Um, Besides meat and eggs and dairy, um, what other foods, I guess, would you say is better to try to get farm fresh? Would you just say in general it's better to try to grow your own food or get farm fresh food, or
I say in general, like anything you can, if you can get local and organic, but I would say I know that's not easy for everyone to do, especially if they're like really
mm-hmm.
like if someone's listening to this and they live like in Chicago or something, it's or New York. I get that's not really easy, but like when you go to the grocery store, try to stay on the outside perimeter. Try to stay away from the aisles because the aisles is what has like all the processed cans and stuff. So try to stay on the perimeter of like, the vegetables, the fruit, and things like that. And so I remember like I cook, my partner and I just cook all the time. Like 98% of what we eat is at home. And um before like 3 years ago, I didn't know how to cook, Danny. I'm not gonna lie. I barely like I made my breakfast, and I can make something simple. Whether it was like quesadilla or, spaghetti, but that was so basic. We're out here cooking like deer steaks and, on special occasions
Ooh.
we'll do like butter poached lobster and like we throw down, okay? And so, but it's getting comfortable. It's like, okay, you and your partner go buy a cookbook. Go pick a recipe together, something that looks fun, and just try it out. It may not come
Mm-hmm.
out perfect,
uh,
but just practice, try it out.
yeah, no, that's my favorite thing. I grew up in a family that loves to cook. So
Mm,
I've known how to cook since a very young age, and I've definitely really appreciated and taken this year to not only learn how to cook better, but just try to create new things, new flavors, and just learn as much as I can about food and how to take it in as an art. Because to me, cooking at this point has become an art, to where like
yeah,
I am thinking about like flavors, flavor palettes, how to layer flavors and make them all come together. I'm thinking about presentation and I think about all these things all the time because I love to cook, which has been really helpful in us trying to live a healthier lifestyle because we eat from home. I want to say 98% of the time. On Fridays we'll
good.
go out to eat, try something that I can't make or that I don't know how to make. But besides that, we always eat from home. It's all home cooking. She's Bolivian and Peruvian, so I've been learning a bunch of
A
her, cultures.
pisco sours. Y'all make
So
pisco sours at home?
yeah, yes,
That's awesome.
yes, they're the best.
Yeah. I love the
But
egg
but
white
yeah,
on top.
so like that's how I've been thinking. Ooh, yeah, yeah. But that's what I've been doing. I've been trying to learn. I've learned with Bolivian food, it's carbs on carbs on carbs. So I'm trying to figure out how to make healthier Bolivian food because it's literally rice, potatoes, and a protein for I want to say 80% of their dishes. But how do you feel about carbs? Like you being a holistic coach, how do you take in carbs if you take in carbs, and how do you feel about like such how there's such a negative view on carbohydrates in general?
I'm cool with carbs. I'm cool with it. I think that like again, it's all about quality. Like I just, made some sourdough this evening. Um, we eat pasta. I mean, I'm not scared of I don't think people should be scared of carbs. I think everything in moderation, right? But
Hmm.
it's all about quality and moderation. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think, like you mentioned, going out on a Friday night for dinner, good for you. Like, I don't think people should feel bad for, going out to the restaurant. Like, that's not my intention. Like, I'm all about so holistic healing for me, my approach is an 80/20. Yes, do your best. Try
Okay.
to cook as much as you can at home with like the healthy fats, avocado, coconut oil, ghee, things like that. Don't use like seed oils, like vegetable oils or anything like that. But just try to make as much as your food at home and, you know, lifestyle changes, all of that. Buy more days on earth, but also like at the end of the day, we're all gonna die. So don't feel guilty about, having, some Tex-Mex or whatever it may be on the weekend. Like it's all good, because that's part of living. It's enjoying like the little pleasures in life. So um I'm I love carbs. I'm all for it. You know, it's different like if you have celiac and you shouldn't eat gluten, but there's
Hmm.
a lot of gluten-free options these days. Even like I'm co-hosting a
Yeah.
sourdough class in a couple weeks, and there's gluten-free options. Like it's definitely doable. So yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. So, are you pretty familiar with what gluten is and why it affects us the way it does? Because I have no idea. I've always wanted to ask someone this question. Like, why is it that so many people nowadays are allergic to gluten?
Well, a true allergy to gluten means that they have celiac disease. And that their body, it's actually life-threatening for them. Like a lot of people think they're allergic to gluten and they're not. So that's something that you have to actually take like a testing to figure out if you truly are celiac. There's a special testing for that. But
Hmm.
the reason why a lot of people are sensitive, not allergic, but sensitive to gluten is because their gut health is not where it should be. And so what happens is, your gut lining should be tight like this, right? And so you have your
Hmm.
bloodstream on one side and your gut on the other side. And so what happens is over time, um, with stress, inflammation, the standard American diet, processed foods, things like that, is your gut lining starts opening up a little bit, and that's called leaky gut. And so your gut lining is leaky and things are passing through the holes, such as um, food that hasn't been fully digested, bacteria, um, chemicals, toxins, things like that. And so our gut lining is inflamed. And that is why we're sensitive to foods now, like in gluten. And so one of the ways that I help my clients is by first doing, I don't know if you've heard of an elimination diet.
Hmm.
Okay. So yeah,
Yeah, I've
as
heard of it. I've actually done the test that you're talking about.
uh-huh.
There's a company called Everlywell that you take a couple blood samples and you send it to them, and they'll
Okay.
send you a list of all the foods you're intolerant to. So I did that recently actually, and I found out. Oh, not recently, like 2 years ago, and I found out I was intolerant to like brewer's yeast, to gluten, and intolerant, ironically, to chicken, which at the time I was trying to lose weight. And you can ask Alan after this, but I literally was eating chicken and rice every single day, trying to, drop weight. And I wouldn't understand why I would swell up. Like I would feel, bloated after eating a bowl of chicken. Come to find out, I'm intolerant to it. And I've actually been able to trace it down to where I'm intolerant to chicken that's high in antibiotics and stuff. But if I get free range chicken,
Mm,
I have no issue.
mm-hmm. Yeah. See, it all goes down to the quality of the food, right? Um, but sometimes we
Yeah.
need a little help, and so our gut is like, inflamed. It's there's some leaky gut going on, and so what helps is doing that elimination diet, just getting rid of a lot of the common food triggers, meat, dairy, gluten, all of that. Getting rid of that for 3 weeks because the half-life of food is 3 weeks, but it takes 3 months for that food to be completely gone from your body. So for those 3 weeks, get rid of all of that. And this isn't a diet. You're not like restricting anything. Like there's a lot you can't eat, salmon, mackerel, things like that. And so you're still getting some protein and you can substitute with some protein shakes if you need it. But you get rid of that first, and then you reintroduce a food one at a time. So for the first, let's say day one, you're ready to reintroduce a food, and let's say you do chicken, right? And you reintroduce chicken, and you eat that the first day 2 to 3 times, right? And you just listen to your body. Are you cramping? Any GI symptoms, headache, fatigue, bloating, anything like that? If you're good, okay, the second day you eat chicken. Keep eating the chicken. Third day and so on and so forth. If nothing happens, then okay, you're good to go. We'll keep the chicken. All right. Several days later, we're going to reintroduce a new item. Let's say it's milk, and you have some GI symptoms or whatever it is. Okay. So now we know that that food is a trigger. We're going to leave it out of our diet. Does not mean forever. That's the thing. It doesn't mean it's forever, right? We'll come back to that. So we'll keep reintroducing foods one at a time to see which food is triggering, right? So then once we do that and we complete that, then we work on healing your gut lining. We work on healing that and getting that tighter. And remember I was
Mhm.
talking about vitamin D? Vitamin D
Mhm.
deficiency, actually, vitamin D helps your gut lining stay tight. So if you're deficient, that could be one reason why it's loosening up. And so again, like I
Okay.
look at labs, I look at all of that, and we work on healing the gut lining. For example, bone broth is really good for you to heal your gut lining. I drink a lot of bone broth, but let's heal it. Let's supplement with vitamin D. Let's introduce
Mhm.
bone broth in your diet, and over time, we're going to heal that gut to where it's stronger, it's healthier, and then let's reintroduce milk again. See what happens. You know, so it's
Uh,
so
uh,
it's so interesting. Yeah, it's. I love gut health. Clearly, I'm all like out of breath here,
okay.
but.
No, that's so cool. Because I mean, it is probably one of the most important things in our body that people tend to neglect, right? And it's so easy to neglect it with all the food, all the drinks, all the sugary stuff we have in
Mm,
the world. So it's super cool that you're explaining this, because there's a lot of things I've always wondered about the gut and like why it's so important. I never knew until I started learning a little bit more about holistic health. That it is practically your second brain. If
Yeah.
that's not okay, the rest of your body tends not to be okay. So that's really really cool, and I appreciate that you explained that and went into depth for us. Alrighty, so I apologize about the interruption. My dogs just don't know how to act sometimes, but and this has been a really fun interview, and I wanted to ask you more about your practice, about raw holistics. You've mentioned how you came up with the name and what you do, but I want to know, what is it like when someone hires you to be their health coach? Like, what do you offer, and how does that process start?
Yeah, so I offer both coaching and consulting. And so kind of like the two main things I offer is a coaching package or coaching and consulting. And so what the coaching package looks like is, that's for the person who struggles with, you know, imposter syndrome, self-limiting beliefs, maybe it's a little anxiety, or maybe they're just so burnt out or overwhelmed or anything like that. And I kind of coach them around that and get to the root of those issues. And, I've invested a lot in myself with my own coaching. Like I actually have my own coach because I feel like how can you coach if you've never been coached kind of thing. But yeah, I'm in a
Mm-hmm.
year-long mentorship and she's great. She's incredible and she's like getting down to like my deepest, darkest secrets. And I'm like, wow, okay, so that's why I'm like this. Okay. And so yeah, that's what I do. I coach around that. I'm like, okay, let's, you know, for example, like a session may start off with maybe a little guided meditation, or let's just take some deep breaths. And um, like, when do you ever get a chance to just sit down and take some deep breaths and like be present and actually be, right? And so then, maybe it'll
Mm-hmm.
look like, okay, what do you need support in today? What's heavy on your heart right now? And whatever that may be, I may offer like, okay, let's jot down some journal prompts or something like that. And because journaling is very helpful. It's very, very helpful. I like to give homework. And it's not like anything crazy like that, but it's like a little homework to like, let's dig deeper. Let's heal your inner child here. And yeah, just really getting to the root of that and figuring out, partnering with them. I'm not sitting there telling them what to do or anything like that. It's just really listening, being a listener, most of all, and supporting them and guiding them into the best version of themselves, right? And then with the consulting side, um, being a nurse in the ICU for 7 years, I'm very comfortable with labs, looking at labs and collaborating with doctors and things like that. So if I have a client who is struggling with, bloating, any digestive issues, hormonal acne, or um anything like that, I'm like, okay, well, to work with me, I have an intake questionnaire and it's very long, it's lengthy, but there's a
Okay.
purpose. I want to know how many times you poop a day. I want to know your sex drive, because if your sex drive is non-existent, that means you're not healthy. There's something happening in your body, because looking looking back, the basic necessities of life, the hierarchy needs is food, sex, shelter, all of
Mm-hmm.
that, like what we learn in school. That is true. And so I ask about that. I ask about medical history, surgical history. Um, are you stressed at work? How's your stress at work? Or how is your marriage? How is the relationship with your kids? How is your spiritual health? All of that. I ask about all of that because all of that really matters. And so then I also look at labs. I look at the last 2 years, the most recent labs, and if they don't have any done, then I collaborate with their doctor. I introduce myself that I'm partnering with them as their nurse coach, and I request additional labs, or I can actually order the labs
Mhm.
myself with an ordering physician on board. And yeah, I create like a personalized wellness plan that is unique to the client, because when you think about, like, you go to the doctor and you complain of these symptoms, okay, they're just going to write you the prescription. It's a blanket, it's the term called, I think it's blanket medicine, where it it's the same thing for every patient. Same thing, same thing, same thing. But we're
Mhm.
all so different. We are all so unique and different. And what works for you may not work for me, right? And so that's why it's important to, like, rule out certain things, get to the root of the problem. So that's my consulting side, and I absolutely love it. That specialty is called functional medicine, and essentially it's getting to the root of the problem. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily the band-aid method that conventional medicine is, but it's like, okay, we're not going to give you pain medicine because you have headache, or, it's more of like, well, why do you have the headache in the first place? Let's figure that out, right?
Mhm.
Why? What is it? And so, because if you're just taking a prescription medicine to, like, mask the symptoms, you still have the problem. It's still there.
Mhm. That's so cool. That's so interesting in how you do all that. Um, Actually, it's funny that you say that the term of blanket medicine, because when I was younger, I got diagnosed with high blood pressure when we were in high school, and I worked out. I ate a lot of cucumber, drank a lot of water, got off my blood pressure medicine by the time we graduated. And recently, I had to go back and get back on blood pressure. And I talked to my doctor about it, and he's like, "How'd you get off of blood pressure medication?" I was like, "Well, I, figured out that I was consuming a lot of sodium. I wasn't working out enough, and I was retaining water. And my mom, when I was a kid, used to always make us, agua de pepino with lemon in it. And
Mm-hmm.
she used to always tell us, like, that's a diuretic. If you ever, need to lose water weight, that's what you do. And then my grandma used to do the same thing for us. So, like, literally a whole year I spent drinking just, agua de pepino, water, and working out. And I got off of blood pressure medicine, and my doctor just couldn't believe it the last time I talked to him. He's like, "How'd you do that time?"
Isn't that kind of
I know,
scary
obviously,
though,
with blood
Danny?
pressure. Yeah,
Isn't that
yeah.
kind of
No,
scary that
it's
that
pretty
doctor was
crazy
shocked
because,
though?
yeah. I mean, because it's true, right? A lot of doctors don't believe you can get off of blood pressure medicine, and I know, like, with cardio health, with blood pressure specifically, like the arteries harden and certain things like that. But taking natural remedies does help as long as you're active and you're
Yeah,
doing it right. So,
yeah.
so I love that you're
That's cool.
consulting and doing those things in labs. Yeah. So on top of that, like, how was it the first time you did that, where you had to, go into a doctor's office and request labs for your client? Were you ever nervous doing that, or was it just
No.
comfortable because you were already a nurse?
No, not at all. Because, being in the ICU, you are working alongside doctors 24/7. It's very, like,
Mhm.
it's a little bit different from like a med surge type unit, because I mean, you have like 6 patients, the doctor comes in, puts the orders and leaves. It's in and out. In the ICU, you are
Mhm.
directly working with them all the time. So, I felt very comfortable going up to the doctors there and be like, "Hey, my patient's, like, potassium is, like, critically low. Like, can we get some potassium orders?" And they're like, "Yeah, okay, sure." Like, it's just very much like, we are the eyes and ears of the unit, so they trust us. And um
Mhm.
no, I've always, like, felt comfortable with them. And it's in the ICU, you have to have a sense of humor. I mean, it's rough. It's rough working there. It's a very
Mhm.
high stress environment. And so you gotta make it fun, right? So doctors are just like us. They're not
Yeah.
like this god, or I don't see them as that, right? They're amazing. I've met some
Uh-huh.
amazing doctors, but I don't see them as like superior or a god. Where we really are teamwork. Down from the nursing assistants
Mhm.
to the nurses to the doctors to the secretaries, patient transport. I see them all the same. We are all the same. We all work really well together, and so I don't know. I've always been comfortable with them, and it's definitely different now because I'm not on the bedside, in the bedside setting. But I
Mhm.
think that I'm seeing a shift around us that people are really wanting to take an active role in their health. And so here's the thing.
Mhm.
Yes, in medical schools and nursing schools, we are trained like this pharmaceutical driven kind of conventional medicine. But there truly are doctors out there that they truly want the best for you. They do. But
Mhm.
even if they wanted to sit down and chat with you for an hour and try to get to the root of the problem, they can't because insurance companies, they have like this contract with insurance companies and they're only allowed to visit with the patient for like 10 to 15 minutes at a time. That's it. Can't go over. They have to meet a certain demand. They have to meet a certain amount of patients a day.
Mhm.
So it's difficult because they really do want to help, but they can't. They can't. And so
Yeah.
I think that they might find it interesting, that I'm coming in here and I'm like, "Hey, I understand you're busy with your practice. You're busy seeing so many patients a day, but I'm here to help. We both
Mhm.
have, same patient, same client, and at the end of the
Mhm.
day, our goal is to help that client, through whatever issues, whatever health issues that they have. And I'm here to partner with you and help, right? And I'm here to
Mhm.
do that full hour with them. My 3 month package is, we meet 9 times for an hour. Um, and we go through all of that. I go through all that and I educate them and I want them to feel empowered in their health. Again, I'm not here just, suggesting or recommending or anything like that. I'm teaching. I'm educating them
Mhm.
because I feel like this isn't just for healthcare to understand how our body works. No, no, no. This is for all of us. All of us should understand how our body works.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I'm pretty comfortable doing that. I've always been comfortable and um, yeah, if that answers your question.
Oh yeah. No, that's great. That's great. Um, now, do you feel that the medical world and people's shift in ideology has been more accepting to holistic coaching and medicine now, or do you think that there's still a little bit of pushback?
I guess it depends who you ask, but also like the environment you're in. Because
Hmm.
like right now, I surround myself with more like-minded individuals who also believe in like holistic healthcare. And it's interesting because we're all different. We're not all the same. What works for me is different from another holistic peer, but we all have like the same goal, and it's uh just to live a better quality of life. And that's different for all of us, right? But networking has been amazing for me because I'm like, oh my God, I feel alone. Like when I first started, I'm like, I feel kind of alone. And I could tell like when I was still working in the hospital, I can tell that um because I'm not gonna lie, I would challenge the doctors and some of the nurses, and I would, with what I was learning, I would challenge. I'm like, well, why aren't we doing this? Or why are we still giving this? And things like that. Or I'd be like, hey, can we go take our patient outside? And this patient's like, you know, can barely walk, but I'm like, I'll roll his bed down. Like, can we do this? And I was pushing the
Hmm.
limits and pushing, and I could tell, they weren't used to it. But again, I don't blame them. This is how we were trained in school. And so yeah, yeah.
Okay. And what would you tell somebody that's on the fence of holistic healing to make them feel more comfortable with it?
It's not that complicated. It's
Perfect.
really, you don't have to have all the knowledge or all the supplements or all the biohacking, you know, we don't need all that. It's great, trust me, it's great to have some of those things, but just go outside, get fresh air, don't be
Hmm.
afraid of the sun. Um, Ask your grandparents if they're still alive, ask them questions. Um, I have recordings of my grandma, my sister was smart enough at the time to like ask her questions, and um it's cool. It's cool to be able to look back and hear my grandmother speak, and it write down your thoughts. Like you are a human being and your words matter. Your life matters. Journal, write a freaking book if you want. You can do anything, right? Like it's it's so simple. Just connect with other like-minded people, genuine
Hmm.
relationships, and you know, volunteer in the community, know who your neighbors are, eat real food, walk barefoot. I mean, it's just simple. Like it doesn't have to be complicated. And I guarantee you, if you start doing those things, you're going to feel so much better because you're slowing down. You're not in a rush all the time and like, get up. First thing you should do is just go outside and just breathe fresh air. Have your coffee outside instead of,
Hmm.
rushing on your way to work. Wait, if that means waking up 20 minutes earlier, do it because it's so important to just live life in the moment, in the present, and just like really take a look like, wow, I am a human being in this universe. Like this is crazy, right? Um, but the life, again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm 29 and for the first time in my life, like I'm actually living. I see life in color, but that's because I'm not I'm not sucked into that like rat race mentality, hamster on the wheel. I'm actually grateful. I actually enjoy life, and everything I do is with intention now, you know. Um and it's beautiful. It's beautiful because our life is short on this earth, right? And we don't want to get older and look back and say, "Damn, I wish I would have done that." Or I wish I would have put more time and effort into my marriage or whatever it is. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I would just say it's not that complicated. Just start with the basics, you know?
Yeah, I love that. That was perfectly said. You convinced me, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
no, that was perfectly said. Okay, I do got one more question before we go into rapid fire questions. And this is more of a question that I'm just curious because I learned about holistic healing through Dr. CB, and I was just curious if you've ever heard of him and heard of like his teachings.
Is he the one that made the C? I think my brother just mentioned this to me. Oh, wow. What is it? Is there a product that he really promotes?
No, he was very big on ancestral and holistic healing, and he had a lot of claims that he found a way to heal cancer through holistic healing. And there was supposed to be a documentary, so there's a whole conspiracy behind his death because he ended up dying, and there's a whole conspiracy about his death and his documentary because Nipsey Hussle was the one directing his documentary, and he also ended up dying. But Dr. CB was very big on holistic healing, very big on using nature to heal one's body. And his biggest claim to fame was that he figured out a way to heal cancer using natural medicine, holistic medicine. I was just wondering if you've ever heard of him because he was who initially sparked my interest. Just seeing clips of his on the internet, and then there's another doctor. I can't remember her name. She's in the UK though, and she's a professor that talks about a
Um,
lot of like healing and a lot about gut health.
I'm looking him up,
I
and
can't
it
remember.
is a doctor that my brother was telling me, and the sea moss gel.
Mhm.
I've been hearing a lot about that. Yeah,
Yes.
I actually heard some conspiracy theories on that too, but I haven't dug too much into cancer just because my main focus is on
Mhm.
brain and gut health, but I believe him. I mean, I would need to
Yeah.
do some more reading and but it wouldn't be surprising to me. Um, I feel
Mhm.
like, so what's his view on cancer again? Like what What kind of holistic
I
therapies? Do you
don't
know offhand or?
I don't remember off the top of my head because I heard it a couple times like about a year ago, and I got that's what caught my attention about him. And he used to always talk about like nopales, using nopales to heal the gut because it's
Yeah.
such a like cactus is such a vital food. And he the main reason that he caught my attention was he always accredited Aztec diets, and like he gave a lot of credit to Mexican culture and how their foods were so great in healing the body. Like he used to always credit Mexicans and Aztecs and the ancient tribes for being very adaptive due to their food and how well they farmed it and all the different things they did. But his biggest claim to fame was healing cancer with a mix of different herbal teas, and I forgot what else. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't want to give you wrong information, but he was very interesting to listen to talk about, like the way he used the natural medicines. I wish I could tell you off the top of my head. I should have written his stuff down before.
No, you're good. You motivated me to read more about him because again, my brother mentioned him to me. But I wouldn't put it past it. Like I really believe in nature. Nature's really healing. And so again, we've been using like herbs forever. And so the
Mhm.
properties are incredible, like incredible. So many healing benefits. So yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, we're the sickest country, whether it's like cancer, high blood pressure, diabetes, anything like that. We're the sickest country, yet we spend the most money on healthcare. Whereas we weren't this sick, before conventional medicine kind of came around. It's like, well, what are we doing wrong? You know? And so we've lost that connection to um holistic healthcare like how our ancestors lived. Um,
Mhm.
whether that's relying on plants and herbs, or like for example my mom, I remember this was like maybe 4 years ago, and I had like a sty. And so usually when that happens, I go to the urgent care and get an antibiotic, and she's like, no. And she made me some like manzanilla tea, chamomile, and I'm like, Mom, I'm not gonna put a tea bag on my eye. And she's like, trust me, it was gone by the end of the day. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. And so like aloe vera, if you get a
Mhm.
cut or an insect bite, we have an aloe vera plant in the back, and she just cuts it and put that little goo on it. I'm like, okay. It's not new. It has healing properties for sure. And so
Yeah.
I'm gonna look more into that. Yeah.
Yeah, he was really interesting. Like I said, he's the one that sparked my interest in learning more about herbal remedies and stuff. Especially because he used a lot of like nopales, aloe vera, different types of cactus in his practice. He studied it quite a bit. Um, and
That's
I
what's up.
mean, aloe vera is amazing too because you can put that on a burn and you'll never once it heals with that stuff, you'll never be able to tell you had a burn there. But
Yeah.
so I think we've gone pretty long, and I've really enjoyed this conversation. But we're kind of towards the end of the interview, so I'm gonna ask you a few rapid fire questions. Just answer, first thing that pops up into your head, and
Okay.
then we'll finish it off with giving you a chance to promote your business. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So first rapid fire question is, what's the first thing you do when you wake up?
Go outside. Can I
Outside.
elaborate, or is this like
Nice.
quick
Okay.
answers?
Yeah. Well, you can elaborate.
I go outside and mess with my chickens. I'm like, ladies, good morning. And I just walk. I'm just outside, man. I just like the first thing I want to do is just feel the sun. So yeah, I walk outside.
Okay. All right. What's your favorite season?
Summer, 100%. I'm a summer girl, born in June. I've always loved summer. So, like I love being in the sun, so much so that it's in my logo. So when winter comes around, I'm like, oh my God, I'm like low key sad. So summer for sure.
Wise, I love summer. I love anything
Yeah.
that does with water and heat. All right.
Yeah.
Number three is, who's your adventure buddy?
My dog, Leonidas, he's been with me since he was a puppy. He's gone to every travel assignment with me. California, Colorado. He's seen the beach, the mountains, the snow. Like he's my adventure buddy for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's so cool. All right. Next one is, what's your favorite type of food?
I would have to say, I don't know. I really love soul food, like mashed potatoes,
Okay.
macaroni, some cornbread, meatloaf, chicken. Oh, yeah, I would have to say soul
That sounds
food
good.
or maybe like a mixture of seafood. Yeah.
Okay. You like seafood? Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite kind
My favorite kind of seafood,
of?
I would say, crab, blue crab, oysters with a little
Ooh,
Tabasco and
okay.
some lemon. That's what I would say for sure. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. All right. What's your favorite place to visit?
Mexico City has the best food in the world.
Oh, yes. Yes. I agree. Okay. Tea or coffee?
It depends on my mood. Yeah, it just like really depends what the vibe is. And sometimes I go through stages where I'm like drinking more tea, like I'm going through a tea phase or like a coffee phase, but yeah, I don't know, both.
Okay. Okay, that's fair. All right. This one's fill in the blank. It is I am Jasmine and I.
Am Jasmine and I am authentically me because
Perfect.
I feel like, especially nowadays, like everyone's like we have this like sheep mentality of like everyone doing the same thing and you know,
Mhm.
and it's not that. Like we're all so different and that's okay, right? We're all so unique. And so it wasn't
Mhm.
until like the past couple years where I've really been able to just really accept who I am as a person and love myself for that. And yeah, authentically myself, yeah.
Perfectly said. I love that. Well, Jasmine, I want to say thank you for coming on the podcast. At this point, this is your chance to shout yourself out, let everyone know where they can find you, give them your social medias, your business website, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at raw.holistics, RAW.HOLISTICS. Did I spell that right? I'm like, for a second, I'm like looking at your sign now.
Oh,
That's
you spelled
funny.
it right. I double checked myself.
Alan, you're gonna cut that part. Just kidding. Okay. So I have a landing page for now, but yeah, you can find me on Raw Holistic, on Instagram, RAW.HOLISTICS. And on there you can find links to my blog. I like writing and yeah, I just write a little bit about everything. Coming up, I'm gonna write about my most recent hunting experience, on how that was definitely a part of my spiritual awakening. And again, education's like really big for me. So you can follow my blog on there. And yeah, really that's like my main source is Instagram. I do have Facebook as well. You can find me on there. Raw Holistics as well. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jasmine, for coming on the podcast. It has been a great time. I can't believe we learned so much in such a short period of time. But we really enjoyed having you on. I hope we get to have you on later down the line to catch up and kind of learn a little bit more from you. Um, thank you to everyone who listened and everyone that tuned in. We appreciate y'all. Um, thank you to all our followers, to the D fam. Thank you, Jasmine, for coming on. You were a great guest, and we'll definitely want to have you back. Go check out Raw Holistics on all social medias. And that's pretty much the end of the show. My name's Danny G. That was Jazmine Reyes from Raw Holistics. This has been the Weekly D podcast. Remember, if you can't get it daily, get it weekly. Peace.